This is the download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Here's what you need to know for today, Monday, March the 3rd. First up, how CityCast picks its new cities. CityCast focuses on producing podcasts and newsletters for specific cities, keeping the content hyper-local. In this piece, co-founders David Plotz and Andy McDaniel break down the decisions that went into expanding the company's coverage into two new markets, Seattle and the Twin Cities. That would be Minneapolis and St. Paul for those of you not from the Midwest. Relevant factors include frequent quote-unquote purple stories that spark conversation instead of one-sided political leaning, a healthy local news ecosystem, over-indexing for podcast listenership, and a growing population of new residents who want a sense of place but didn't grow up with the local news. Next up, the Rajar Midas Report Winter 2024. UK analyst Adam Bowie is back at it with another breakdown of the quarterly Midas Report from Rajar. This winter report is built from fieldwork over late November and early December 2024, sampling 1,668 respondents in the UK aged 15 plus who kept 7-day online diaries of their listening habits. As usual, live radio has a strong foothold in the UK with 88% overall weekly reach, getting up to 92% weekly reach with the 55 plus demographic. On-demand music dips slightly from 39% in the fall to 37% in the winter. Podcast listening rose 23% to 26%, with the biggest demographic being a 35% weekly reach in the 35 to 54 demographic. Next up, podcasting's shift to video comes with pitfalls. Oxford Road and Veritone One CEO Dan Granger looks at the current state of video in podcasting and where it could go. As the Cumulus Media and Signal Hill Insights podcast download report from fall of 2024 shows, YouTube has consistently grown as the place respondents most accessed podcasts, from 15% in 2019 to 34% as of October 2024. While the videoification of podcasts benefits YouTube, Granger warns podcasting to stop and see the forest for the trees. In pivoting to video, there's a danger of losing the appeal of podcasts in a race to create short-form friendly TikTokable content. He calls for brands and publishers to start demanding transparency and to work with publishers to push standardized measurement options from third-party tracking services that will help bridge the gap between fractured measurement across video and audio platforms. Next up, cost-cutting and podcasting. First up, Reuters reports on a recent announcement that Amazon has cut a quote-unquote small number of jobs at Wondery. An anonymous source familiar with the matter told Reuters both content and advertising teams were impacted and dozens of workers let go, though an Amazon representative says the number is lower. Meanwhile, in Australia, ARN, exclusive operator of iHeartRadio in Australia, has announced a $40 million cost-cutting plan to be implemented over 3 years. As Pod News coverage of this reports, ARN saw flat revenues in 2024, with digital audio increasing 28% year over year. We'd like to remind readers and listeners at home that the Sounds Profitable job board is free to apply through and submit new positions to in the business of podcasting. Next up, Advertisers inadvertently blocked 56% of Oscars content due to blunt keyword block lists. Adweek received exclusive data from Mantis tracking over 460,000 page views between December 28th and January 27th. A master block list built from several ad agencies flagged 3,161 pages, representing 56% of total views, as problematic for advertising due to keywords. Similarly, blunt keyword block lists nuked 57% of tracked content relating to this year's Super Bowl and the Paris Olympics last year. In the case of the Oscars, simply mentioning the subject matter of nominated movies can catch a block, if not the title of popular franchises. The Walking Dead, Star Wars, and, for whatever reason, Thor were found in the master block lists examined by Mantis. Time for industry opportunities. In this semi-recurring segment, we like to spotlight opportunities for everyone in the business of podcasting. First up, I'd like to turn your attention to South by Southwest and something happening on the podcast stage. South by Southwest is just around the corner. Coming to the podcast stage this year is the Podcast Ad Performance Playbook, featuring people from Indeed, SiriusXM, Ad Results Media, and Podscribe. By the by, if you're a partner of Sounds Profitable and going to South by, get in touch. We're whipping up special Meet Me at South by graphics to help spruce up your posts about it on socials. And rounding out this segment, this year's Pod News Report Card is only open for feedback about major podcast platforms one more week. It ends on March 9th. If you've got thoughts about podcast hosting or platforms in general, submitting feedback to the Pod News Report Card helps give a more informed overall view of the state of podcast hosting. As for the rest of the news, Odyssey has expanded their multi-year exclusive sales and distribution partnership with CBS, now including the CBS Entertainment, Media Ventures, News, and Studios slate of podcasts. Linkfire has published a new customer spotlight blog, this time interviewing Lemonada Media's Amber Girardi Robinson. Edison's annual Infinite Dial study is set to debut Thursday, March 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in a live webinar. This year's edition is supported by Odyssey, Cumulus Media, and SiriusXM Media. The Podcast Business Journal recently interviewed Coleman Insights Vice President and Consultant Jay Nocklis. Over on LinkedIn, Chris Peterson takes a look at iHeartMedia's Q4 earnings call and the recent announcement of their partnership with the government of Qatar. And Variety's podcasting brunch at South by Southwest, presented by YouTube, is set to be headlined by Hot Ones host Sean Evans, Mythical Entertainment co-founders Rhett McLaughlin and Link Neal, Rhett and Link, and tech YouTuber Marquez Brownlee. Be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or at soundsprofitable.com, where you can also subscribe to the newsletter version. The download is written and produced by myself, Newton Shadowcotty, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis. Download us again tomorrow.